What kind of show is this? Can I have a snack, Daddy? Is my breakfast ready? Can I have a snack?
Everybody, I just want to say welcome back to Hearts and Minds. I am here with Dr. Okaka Opio Dokotum, coming to us from Uganda this morning there, and even earlier this morning here in New York. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us. For those that don't know, Dr. Dokotum is an associate professor of literature and film and deputy vice chancellor in charge of academic affairs at Lira University in northern Uganda. And the resume is so long that we could literally take the entire podcast to go through everything. But is there, first of all, hello and good morning. Is there anything that you want us here at Hearts and Minds to know, this audience to know about you, sir?
So thank you, Harts, for really considering me to appear in this high-profile podcast of yours. And I am Associate Professor Okaka Opio Dokotum, working at Lira University as Deputy Vice Chancellor. I do administrative work, but I'm also an academic. So my research usually is situated in literature and film, but I work around cultural studies generally, music, theater, film, history, especially visual history, and other things.
That's amazing. And how many children do you have?
I have one child. It's a girl.
Wow, a girl. How old?
She's 19 now.
19. Wow. Yeah, so okay. You know that is you're a couple years further ahead than me. So I can't wait to sink in all of this great advice that I know you're gonna leave me with. Please help, SOS. I'm just wondering, how you define success, as a father, emotionally, spiritually, practically.
Yes, as a Christian, I would have to go back to the Bible. Basically, say success is basically having everything you need in life, and that means you're talking about emotional satisfaction, material satisfaction, and spiritual satisfaction. That also means fulfilling your obligations as a father, as a husband, as a community leader, and achieving your goals in life. I would say that's what success is.
Do you have a lesson that you learned from, your father that you like to pass down to, or that you have passed down to your daughter?
Yeah, I think my dad was a disciplinarian. He was a very tough kind of father, and I didn't like that when I was growing up. But my dad passed on in 2018, and I realized that he was the greatest dad I ever had. And I was not an easy child. So if he wasn't a tough dad, I wouldn't have made it. Really, frankly, because I lost track and got into drinking and smoking and all kinds of crazy things. But thank God he actually brought me back. And my dad was he was a very strong dad, but also he had a lot of flaws. So part of my anger in life was because I saw him, struggle with life and lose track and frustrate my mom and a couple of things. And I judged him very severely. But now that I've grown up, I realized that I could have shown him more sympathy. And I understand him better now as a full man myself. And so when I talk to my daughter, I also want to help her to understand that I cannot be perfect all the time and that she needs to forgive me when I miss the mark.
That's amazing. Yeah, I for me personally, one of the biggest things, the greatest moments I had in my life was, forgiving my father for whatever his, my opinion was concerning his transgressions from a child's perspective, growing up and understanding what it takes to actually not just be a man in this world, but to be it really, it clears things up quickly.
Yes. Yes. And you wish you could, walk back the time and treat him another way if you had a second chance, because you realize that was just another human being who was trying so hard and missed the marks at some places. Yeah.
That's so true, so true. And how would you say that all of this perspective and being a father has influenced your work as a professor, as a creative, as just a person, in the creative arts.
Yeah. So fatherhood is at the center of everything. There is a conventional father. You are a father of a daughter, a son, or a couple of sons and daughters. But then when you now go to the real world, there's so many people who need fathers, and there's so many people who want to call you daddy. And so you find that even at the workplace, I'm a deputy vice chancellor. I have lecturers who call me daddy. I have people who work at the university who would call me dad. And I remember one teaching assistant who actually came to my office and said, "Would you be my father?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll be your father." So he started calling me dad. This is someone who's teaching at the university, And then another girl, who is another lady who teaches actually also in management sciences, sent me a WhatsApp message and says, "I wish you were my dad." And I said, "Yeah, I can still be your dad. I might not be your biological dad, but I can still be your dad." He says, "Yes, please be my dad." So this is in the workplace, and now when you come into the work we do with theater, with film, you're constantly managing people, and you have people of all ages, and definitely the young ones look to you directly as a father, and you have to manage yourself with dignity and respect, and teach them and honor them. You have all these young girls around you, and they want to see an example of a father from you. So for me, wherever you go to church, it is the same thing. You have a lot of people who have biological fathers, but they have no functional fathers in their lives, and they look to you and they tell you and they call you that. So I think fatherhood is at the center of everything. And then when people are not being fathered, everything goes wrong in our society.
That is absolutely true, and that it really brings me to my most important question of all, which is, Dr. Doak, will you be my father? Okay, never mind. No, no, I have one. It's
Yes, I
okay.
know.
You know my mother.
I do. I
She's
do. I
an,
understand. I understand you completely. I understand you completely. There are all kinds of levels of fatherhood. Huh? You
yeah,
remember
yeah.
a preacher was saying recently, if your pastor, is your father, you could be older than him, but in his office, in his function, is your father, and you got to respect him that way. So I basically understand what you're talking about. It's not just about age. It's not just about the biological. It's there's so many dimensions. And I know, of course, you're joking.
No, I'm half joking, of course. But the thing about it is that I'm noticing that spirituality and God seem to play a major part in the way that you approach being a father and a
Correct.
person. How would you say God and the Bible have supported you and directed you in your role over these years?
Yeah, so going back to my father again, when I was growing up as a child, actually, my dad was great. I had an awesome dad. He was a little too strong. He caned you quite a bit, but like I told you already, I appreciate what he did. And now when my dad lost track, eventually abandoned my mom and got another wife and that kind of thing, it hurt so much. It was like I couldn't believe it. So I also went off track, and I only regained my senses when I came to the Lord, basically, because I didn't talk to my dad for 6 years. We never talked, and he visited me once, and I kicked him out of my room at the university. And but then when I eventually became a committed Christian, Then God sent someone to me with that scripture from the book of Proverbs. I don't remember the scripture. It says, a child who curses his father and mother, his light will be put off. And I didn't understand it, but 2 weeks later, he sent another person with another scripture. He says, God sent me to you and told me to tell you, the child who dishonors his father and mother, his eyes will be eaten by the birds of the by the birds of the field. And that's when I woke up. It was like, hey, I think God is telling me something here. And then I very quickly said, how can I, what do I need to do? I had the conviction to go back to my father. And so I called my relatives and I said, please go talk to my dad. I want to meet with him. And then I arranged 2 weeks later. I went there. I called a Catholic clergyman and an Anglican clergyman. They came together. I knelt before him. I told him I was sorry for the way I hated him and was angry with him. I wanted him to forgive me. I wanted him to bless me. And I knelt down, and I still have the picture. So I knelt down. He said, I forgive you. He laid his hands on me. He proclaimed some terrible things in righteousness over my life. And he says, go forth in life. And then there was a turning point, a complete turning point in my life from that point forward. And then I started loving him just as he was. I had love for my father like you could not imagine. He had not changed at all. It would take years before he could change. And then when he eventually changed, we had some of the greatest. My dad died in 2018, but we would spend, when I visited him, we would sit up to 2 a.m. in the morning just talking and laughing. Then we would go to bed and we wake up in the morning and start all over again. It was like I made up for all the years that was wasted. And that really impacted on my life. And then I realized that this thing called fatherhood, we cannot do it if we are not aligned with the perfect Father, the Heavenly Father. We really cannot do it. So when now God gives you that grace, you can be a father, because what people are looking for is, a perfection that comes as close as possible to God. And none of us hits 100%. I don't think we even come anywhere like 5%. But to the degree we are aligned to Him, that is the degree to which people will see our Father. And these are the kind of people who come to me and say, will you be my father? Because they're seeing something in you. They see love, they see patience, they see a desire to lift people up and to mentor them. And this really gives them a desire for a father like that. And now you and me is in a position where we can do that for others who did not have the opportunity to have a father.
Was there ever a moment in your life where you realized that God had done all that He was going to do in any given moment, and that the responsibility, as they say, faith without works is void, correct? That the responsibility was left to you to finish the task, that He sent you the boat, the story of the man drowning. They sent 3 boats in a row, right? And each boat that went by, he says, no, don't save me. I'm waiting on God to save me. Mm-hmm. And finally, he drowned and got to heaven. And God's like, well, why? I sent you 3 boats. Mm-hmm. You didn't get on any of them. He said, well, you said you were I figured you would save me, Lord. He said, mm-hmm. I sent you 3 boats. Mm-hmm. So was there ever a moment where you felt like, okay, I've been given this opportunity by God. He's put the wind under my wings, but now I must walk the plank. I'm on my own now to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. Yes. That question.
Yes, it does make sense. And I think again for me it's feedback from other people. We never really feel that we've grown up enough to take the responsibility until somebody starts calling you daddy. And then, so you never feel like you're equipped enough, you're ready enough, you're mature enough. And then all of a sudden it's like you're being asked now to pour out. God has been pouring out into you, your father poured out into you, your uncles and everybody, the church elders and so on. But you still keep looking to them you are always a child, remember? Like to your mom. Your mom Shirley, you're a child forever, and you like that shadow, you like that umbrella, you like staying there because you want to stay in that comfortable place. But then you find that now It is time for you to pour out in other people. And then that's when you really wake up. And for me, it is like it is mostly in church, the church atmosphere, when people come to you and say, you really inspire me, you're really father figure to me. I look to you, and it's like, but what are you talking about? God knows me. God knows what is going on between me and him. I am not perfect at all. I don't even have it. Like, but outside here, people are actually seeing you and looking forward to you to deliver. And at that point, you realize that you're actually in church. And I can't forget this experience when my dad died. The day my dad's body was brought home, and the mourners were out there. People, they were doing the prayers, and then uh, they now announced on the microphone and said, "We're now inviting the head of the family to come and speak to the mourners." I heard it in the microphone, but it didn't make sense to me. And then they announced it again and say, "Could the head of the family please come and receive the mourners?" And I was busy talking to someone else and just listening. And then somebody came and tapped me and said, "Hey, hey, hey, they're calling you to go and talk to the mourners." I was like, "What? I am the head of the family? You mean I am the head of this family? I am the head of all my siblings, and I'm receiving all my uncles and aunties. I'm receiving all my dad's friends here. I'm the one who is hosting the clergy who are leading this funeral. I am the head of the family." I was shocked. I was so shocked. So I was trembling. I get to the microphone and say, "Oh, I want to welcome you all home. Thank you for standing with us. We lost our dad," and so on. So it's like, you know what? This is it. You are the head of the family. And so some of these things you can never get prepared for it. There's never a point when you can say, "Oh, so I'm now ready to be a dad. I'm now ready to be the head of the family. I'm not ready to be what." No, you just thrown into it. And God says, "Come on, it's your turn." And now, as the older generations are exiting, some have died and others are now, they're getting older, and they're done. We have to step into that place, and then it's all about being daddy. That's what it is. It's all about fatherhood. Everything there is just fatherhood. There's nothing like administration. Administration is there, yes, but basically it's about the heart. You have to love people. You have to be patient. You have to be kind. You have to be generous. You have to be hospitable. It is all those things.
I really love the fact that you have such a heavy academic background, but you also have really leaned into the creative side through the years as well. I noticed film on your long, very long, illustrious resume, and I know that you wrote a book about Hollywood and Africa. Actually, I believe it's called Hollywood and Africa. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, Hollywood and Africa. Hollywood and Africa. Um, what is this title again? Uh, Hollywood and Africa: Consolidating the Myth of the Dark Continent from 1908 to 2020. Yes, it's a
I
serious
mean,
book. Yeah.
I'm so excited to read that and follow up with you in another interview once I do, because I love this idea that you took all the things that you learned, not just as a human being but also as a father, and fed them into your creative work as well, and shared with us this perspective of Hollywood, from Africa, which I think is, I mean, from what I can tell, I mean, Africa is, they are rocking it, man, with in the movie scene, man. They are doing it over there, like making some, like, it's a booming industry, right?
Oh yes, it's just taking off.
I think one of the biggest questions I have, because it's as a father in in America, with African American roots on one side, descendant of slaves and Native Americans, and then on the other side, a descendant of, Irish settlers. I look at my history on one side, and it's, it's cut off for obvious reasons, because, my ancestors were slaves in this country. But and the fact that the country is only a few hundred years old, a little bit more than that, it is what it is, and I'm proud to be here and raised in this country. But I do long sometimes for a longer history to have access to spiritually, even though I feel the ancestors and the connection and all that, but I mean literally, And I wonder in your life, in your family, if you've been able to harness the opportunity to tap into the ancestors from 1,000 years ago, a tradition that has been passed on from generation to generation to generation until finally it landed in your lap. And you were able to pass that on to your daughter and say, this isn't just from me. This is literally from the ancestors, millennia old as Africa. Is there anything that you've been able to use in that regard, to call on?
Yes, and thank you, Harts. I actually, Frank, I hear your heart, like for the desire for connection, which is basically the desire to know who you are. It's an identity issue, and the one thing that Africa still has that most people don't have is that rootedness in tradition. Even though it was disrupted by colonialism. Remember when colonialism came, the overarching drive there was to civilize the dark continent. And I think there was, I appreciate that very much. They brought us faith, especially faith in Jesus Christ, which I appreciate very much. But a lot of what came here also was basically cultural Christianity, which had nothing to do with Jesus. They disrupted our innovation system. They disrupted our science and invention. They disrupted social life. There were very many things that were grounded, and then we were kind of cut and transplanted into Europe in terms of our identity. And then we had to change our names and get Christian names, and most of those names are not even Christians. Some of them are names of persecutors of Christians, but somehow we got all those names. There was a major disruption, and so one of the biggest disruptions was in disruptions into African spirituality and traditional religion and life, because it was presumed that everything African was dark. But then when you now go back, I'm actually writing a book on my tribe called the Lango Nation, a historical overview. And in that historical overview, I now realized that there was a lot of closeness between our traditions and the Jewish Hebrew traditions in terms of religion, in terms of hospitality, in terms of way of life, in terms of how children were raised. We had very solid social structures. Actually, just yesterday I was talking at a conference about the difference between the Western concept of individuality, where everything goes back to the individual, versus the African concept of community. And so everything we do is in the context of community. Children are raised in the context of community. And I do remember how, somebody came and reported to my dad that he found me stealing guavas from the orchard of the priest, the Catholic priest. And then without even investigating, my dad told me to lie down, and I was caned immediately. I mean, somebody just came, he didn't even investigate it. Of course, that was a lot of injustice because I didn't do that. I didn't really do that. But that is what the community was like. If you're a child living in a community, everyone is watching you. You got to behave here, you got to behave there, everywhere, because everyone is part of raising you up. So that is the kind of community in which I grew up. And then now I realize that now we have the new laws and child protection and all the rules, and you can't touch anybody's child, you can't speak to the life of anybody's. Everything has become really different. But those were values. There were things that were not good about it, like the way the injustice I suffered from my dad caning me. But there was something really good about being protected as a child growing in the village. You could just play, run, eat in any house, and everything was really just fine there. There was values of hospitality. There was a community support structure. There were no orphans, really, to talk of in the sense of today, where you're an orphan, you are on your own with your mother or with your father. In the traditional society, there was a support structure where your brother's child was your child. Basically, your brother's child was your child. There was nothing like that is my nephew, this and that. You just absorb that. And then there was this tradition of like if a lady, a woman was widowed, she could find support within the system. And then one of what has become very controversial today was wife inheritance, which is of course something that nobody wants to hear about today. But it was there even in the Bible. Like even when Judah's son died, he was supposed to give the Tamar to the next boy, Onan, and then Onan misbehaved, and you know what Onan did. He didn't want his seed to produce seed for his brother. God killed him, and so she was supposed to be given Salah. It is there in the Bible. So this was part of African tradition that the woman who was widowed would be actually, given somebody else, and that person is supposed to be a father to the kids that had remained. These are all values that we have lost. Now, today, your wife inheritance doesn't exist anymore. But I'm just saying this to say there was a very solid social support system. I mean, there was nothing like street kids. And that because as a result of that, you didn't have the kind of rate of abortions that we have today, or robbery and all these other things, because there was family. And that family was not just me, my wife, and my 3 children. Family was the nuclear family, then there was the extended family, then there was what you'd call the household, which was like the house of so-and-so, which goes through several generations. Then you had the clan. Now the clan, you had a clan chief over that particular clan. Like I come from the Omolo clan. We have what we call the Witong of Omolo that presides over this particular clan. So they ran some kind of religious structure, they ran some kind of political structure. So this was the government of the time until we got now the new government that came with colonialism. So even up to today, you have these 2 parallel structures still you have the civic system, where you have the president, the executive, and so on and so forth, running all the way down to the village. But then you also have this traditional structure running at the same time.
Well, listen, we're running out of time. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, because I'm having so much, I'm learning so much here and having so much fun. But I just want you to know one thing: don't feel bad about the guava that you took. Because when I was an altar boy in Catholic school, I would take the rest of the hosts, the leftover hosts, back to the kitchen and eat them all. I ate them all. They were blessed. So I felt like if I ate all the hosts, I'd be extra blessed. And plus, I was like always hungry. But anyway, that's just between us and the rest of the world. Don't feel bad about the guava.
I didn't eat it though.
I did. But listen. It's been so great talking with you and learning from you and getting your perspective on fatherhood. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me and the Hearts and Minds community. And I really do enjoy opening up the conversation on fatherhood to an international perspective, because I think sometimes me personally here in the U.S. I can get sort of so bogged down or focused on what's happening around me here. I wanted to broaden it out and get a different perspective, because as parents we need all the assistance and all the support and help we can get. Why not make it a global community? So thank you so much, Dr. Okaka Opio Dokotum. Much love to you, my dear brother, and thank you so much for joining us. And if there's anything else you want to plug on the way out, please let us know. We know about the book, Hollywood and Africa. Get it on Amazon today. I know I already ordered my copy. Anything else you want to mention?
I just want to say thank you really for hosting me on this podcast. There's really nothing else. I'm just very grateful that I got to share my perspective on fatherhood, and I hope it blesses somebody. And maybe we'll have another conversation around this topic another time. I thank your mom too. I should thank your mom, Shirley, for connecting us.
Yes, thank you to my mother for connecting us. I'm so glad you all met when you had your Illinois journey. And I want to get into that someday in the future too. But have a great Sunday there in Uganda, and sending love to you and the family.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This one's for the fathers who didn't feel ready but showed up anyway. Dr. Okaka Opio Dokotum reminds us that fatherhood isn't just a title, it's a calling. Whether you're a biological dad, a mentor, a teacher, or a spiritual guide, someone out there is looking at you and saying, "That's my father." And here's the fuel. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. You don't need all the answers. You just need to listen. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to lead with heart. Because fatherhood isn't about control. It's about connection. It's not about being the strongest. It's about being the most consistent. And sometimes the most powerful thing a father can say is, "I'm sorry. I love you. Let's try again." So today, whether you're raising your own child or lifting someone else's spirit, remember, you are the boat. You are the blessing. You are the father they've been waiting for. Become the dad you dream you can be. That's your Dad Fuel Minute. Stay strong, stay grounded, and keep showing up.